All right, we're going to, first verses we're going to see are Romans 12. Romans 12. The subject we're going to look at this afternoon is thanks, but no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. Romans 12:2 says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." If you look at the words thank you in the dictionary, it is used to express appreciation to someone for offering or giving you something, for helping you, for asking how you are feeling. Thank you for calling, something you say or do to express your appreciation for something. Saying thank you is different than giving thanks. Saying thank you has become a habit for some, but giving thanks is kind of rare in the generation in which we live. Kids are forced to say thank you when someone gives them something, but sometimes don't know the true meaning of giving thanks. Being thankful is more than saying a word. It is an attitude, and we are commanded to be thankful. Colossians 3, verse 12 through 15 say, "Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another, if any have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, and also do ye. And above all these things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also ye are called in one body, and be ye thankful." 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, "In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you." God expects us to be thankful. Understand, we're not supposed to give thanks when it's easy, or give thanks when it's pleasurable. It says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, "In everything give thanks." We live in an ungrateful generation. Let's see if these scriptures Paul wrote remind us of anything. Romans chapter 1, verse 16 says, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because in which they may be known of God is manifest in them. For God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change their natural use into which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their own lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Does that not sound a little bit like the turn the United States of America has made in the last several decades? And if we go back and look, it started off with unthankfulness. They worship the Creator more, or the creation more than the Creator. How many folks find it more important to preserve and to save the blue whale than they do a human child, a human baby? How many folks expect a stiffer punishment for someone that cuts down a certain tree than someone, but it's completely okay for someone to end a pregnancy because they don't want to deal with the situation they found themselves in? Verse 21 says, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. They were not thankful. Unthankfulness will lead us down a dark path. It leads to entitlement, where we feel that we're owed something. Have you noticed the younger generations and that sense of entitlement? Did you pay attention during the election? Some of the folks they wanted their candidate to pay off all of their bills because they're entitled to that. They want to be able to do anything they want to do because they feel they're entitled to that. That entitlement mentality starts with unthankfulness. Luke 15 verse 11 says, and he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country. There he wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he spent all, there arose a mighty famine in the land. He began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country. And he set him into the fields to feed swine. And he would have fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will rise and go to my father, and say unto him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no longer worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again, and he was lost, and is found. And they began to be merry. Now we know that part of this story. We're familiar with what's happened here. The youngest son wanted his share of his inheritance, and he was going out on his own. He was leaving. He left, he wasted it, found himself in want, and came home to try to be a servant of his father. Now, of course, we know his father accepted him back as his son, killed the fatted calf, had a celebration that his son was home. I'm sure that this youngest son was thankful for what his father did for him. Let's look at the other brother. Verse 25. Now his elder son was in the field, and he came and drew nigh to the house. He heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come. Thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him and safe and sound. And he was angry, and he would not go in. Therefore came his father out and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment. And yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. This brother was not thankful. He didn't seem to care that his brother came home. He didn't seem to care that he was okay. All he could think about was himself and what he was entitled to. He was more concerned about a party for him and his friends than he was his own brother. That shows us that he was unthankful. He was more worried about what he was entitled to. Hey, if anybody deserved a party in this family, surely it's me. I stayed here. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't live outside the bounds of your rules. But you didn't even have a party for me. You didn't even do anything for me. He had that entitlement attitude which comes from unthankfulness. So, what we need to think about and we need to consider this afternoon is, are we thankful? Listen, I don't mean do you say thank you. That's a good thing, but some folks don't even do that. I can't tell you how many times we're either serving lunch or at school. I've taken pizza into the kids, and as you're passing it out, maybe, just maybe, 1 in 10 will say thank you. A lot of them don't even think about it. Now, at camp, sometimes it's a little different, just depending on the group of kids you got there at the time. You may have a little more than that, but usually they're not saying thank you either. But part of that reason is they were never taught. No one taught them to say thank you. But we're not talking about just saying thank you. We're talking about being thankful. Does our thankfulness drive us to do something? Maybe send a card. If somebody's done something for you, or maybe you just notice someone's faithfulness. And you could drop them a card and say, hey, thank you for being an example of faithfulness in my life for me to see. Maybe make a phone call. You know, everybody notices when I don't make a phone call. Hey, we had, however many we had here this morning in services, there's not near that many here this afternoon. We could pick up the phone and say, hey, it was good to see you in church Sunday morning. I missed you Sunday afternoon. Not to chastise or to call attention that someone's missed. Some folks had some things to do, and I understand that. But just to let them know, hey, we missed you. When we miss a service, the whole body notices. Would you notice if you woke up early in the morning and your arm was asleep and didn't function or it felt like it wasn't there? You notice when a piece is missing. We all make up the body of Christ. We all have a job. We all have a place here. And when we're not here, we miss that. So when you make a phone call, hey, or you might say, hey, I've noticed that you never miss church. And I just want to say thank you for being an example for others to look at. You know, you can send a card, you can make a call, you can buy a gift. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular or expensive, but just something to say thank you. While we're on the topic of thankfulness, let me ask you this. The next point I have here is leaving a tip. Now I know what, and a lot of servers don't understand what tip stands for. And I don't know if it's really what it stands for or somebody just thought something clever. But I was always told it meant to ensure prompt service. Tips. If you want tips, make sure folks have prompt service. If your server goes above and beyond and makes sure he has what you need and they're very friendly and they make sure if there's a problem they resolve it, do you show your thankfulness in a tip? Now, what gets me, and it confuses me a little bit. Sometimes, you know, I'll see folks out They'll pray before they eat, and that's good. A lot of times you don't see folks even say grace anymore before they eat. But they'll pray before they eat, and they'll be short with the waitress because they expect their drink never to go half empty. They expect when they have a question, the server's supposed to know when they need to be there. They're a little bit rude. They're a little bit short. And then when the meal's all finished, that server just absolutely worked as hard as they could. They did the best they could. Maybe everything wasn't perfect, but they worked really hard. And they'll get out their calculator and say, now how much do I have to leave on this table? And they'll figure out their 10%. Or some folks say 8%, or whatever the percentage is they feel is the minimum tip you ought to give someone, and then they'll take that tip and then they'll put it in a church tract and they'll leave it on the table. And I thought, man, if I was that hateful with my server and didn't show any thankfulness, you don't have to leave a $100 tip, but hey, if somebody did a good job, let them know that, and then to leave it in a church tract. I've talked to several folks that waited tables, and sometimes I just like to ask questions, and when you're talking to folks, and of the usually a Sunday afternoon crowd. They say when I see a tract laying on the table, I usually think, well, there's my tip. There's my tip, and it's a little bit disheartening, but oftentimes it's true. I've caught myself being that way before. Hey, listen, if I can't afford to leave a tip for the server, I won't go. I won't go. I'll go home. I remember we were, and I've told you this story before, I'm sure, but we were at a baseball game, and this homeless fella came up to me, and he said, hey, I'm hungry. Do you have any money you give me? And I gave out what I always say. I don't carry cash, sorry buddy, because I'm not just going to give somebody money. I don't know what you're going to do with it. I'm not going to buy their alcohol or their whatever their favorite addiction is. I don't feel like that's being wise with the money, what little bit of money that we have. But I really didn't have any cash that day either, so I wasn't lying to him. But I said, here's a tract, and I gave him a tract. He said thanks. He walked off. We got in the truck and we started to leave. And the Holy Spirit just convicted my heart and said, man, if that guy was really hungry, that piece of paper is really not going to do him much good in the moment. Now, understand the gospel is the most important thing he could get. Salvation is the best gift in the world. But he was hungry. And I don't even know if he could read it. So that paper may not have done him a bit of good. So I told Amy and I told the boys, I said, man, we probably really should get that guy something to eat. I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to go to the McDonald's. I'm going to get a meal that we will eat, one of us would eat. And if we come back and we can't find him anywhere, then I just know that he was just out after money and he wasn't really hungry. But we want to pray specifically that if he was truly hungry, that we can find this guy so we can give him this food. Go to McDonald's a few blocks away. We come back, he's gone. Can't find him anywhere. So we start to leave town. We get up to the top of the hill, and I'm just starting to think and preparing my speech for the boys about how people try to take advantage of you, and you got to be careful, and you just never know. And there stands that gentleman alongside the road. I thought, wow, that's neat. So we pulled off the road. I rolled the window down, and I said, listen, I told you the truth. I didn't have any money. I said, but if you're truly hungry, here's a meal from McDonald's. I said, you can have it. He kind of got a little bit emotional. He said, thank you. He took that meal, went straight over to the steps of the barbershop that he was in the parking lot of, and sat down and started eating. He was thankful. I could see it in his face. He was thankful. Hey, leaving tracts is a great thing to do. But if you know someone is truly in need, they're going to need something a little bit more than a piece of paper. We got to be willing to help folks. Why? Because we should have a thankful heart that God's taking care of us and we're not in that position. I would not want to be a waitress or a waiter, especially in the time in which we live. Some folks are going out, some aren't. And some people have said, all of the restaurants are going to carry out. A lot of them haven't been open. Maybe some of them will start to open here soon, but all of their business comes through carry out. Now, those same waitresses that wait at tables have no tables to wait, but they're filling bags and they're bringing it to you curbside. And I saw a post on Facebook. People said, well, you don't tip for carry out, right? Not normally. I would say probably not. But if that's the only income they have, and they're still making a waitress salary, their tips is how they get, that's how they make it. So show your thankfulness through a tip when you get good service or somebody does something for you to help you. Here's something that's really going to get you in trouble. How about give a hug? I know with COVID and the sickness and all these things, folks are afraid to give a hug. But you know what? Sometimes somebody just needs a hug. And if they need a hug and it's appropriate, give them one. There are several folks that I've seen that I haven't got to see in a while. And they said, do you mind if I give you a hug? People are missing that appropriate human touch that they just haven't had because of the things that we've been dealing with for the last almost year now. Hey, another way you can show thankfulness is to say a prayer. You could pray for someone. If someone's struggling or someone needs something, or just if God puts them on your mind, say a prayer for them that day. Be thankful that you have friends that you can pray for. You have folks that you can pray for. So what I want to ask this afternoon is, do we have an attitude of thankfulness? How do we know if we have an attitude of thankfulness? It'll show in our fruit. What should we be most thankful for? Our salvation. Jesus paid the price. He died willingly. He gives it to us freely. And sometimes when you hear that word free connected to something, sometimes it drives you away a little bit. Have you ever been somewhere, well, nowhere lately, but you used to go to the mall or somewhere where there was a crowd and there was somebody had a table set up and maybe they want you to sign up for a credit card or something, and they'd say, hey, come over here and sign up now and get a free gift. Generally, what is that free gift that they're wanting to give you? It's usually a piece of junk, isn't it? It's usually no good at all. Or if you want to watch some television, all the channels that come on free usually, or didn't used to be, the channels that showed anything worth watching. So when you think of free, sometimes it's attached to things that just aren't worth anything anyway. That's why they're free. Do you realize this morning, your salvation, though it's free to you, there was a great price paid for your salvation. Jesus left heaven, came to earth. Jesus could have came to earth and had the nicest house, the nicest place, the best servants, waited on hand and foot. And it was still an unbelievable downgrade from heaven. But he didn't do that. He came all the way down to a lowly stable. Didn't even have a bed. Lived a common, lowly life. Gave his perfect blood for you and I so that we could go to heaven. What a thing to be thankful for. Hey, if you're not saved this morning, I know that that would probably be the testimony of the most folks in the room, if not everyone. We should be thankful for our salvation. But what are we doing with our life after salvation is just as important. As the song leader comes and the piano player, we're going to have a time. You know, there are some folks that would give anything to have a family. There are some folk maybe want to just give thanks for your job or for your house or for your whatever situation you're able to enjoy in your life, just to be thankful for it. Let me ask you this: if we woke up this morning or in the morning and we only had the things we were thankful for today, what would we have left? We're going to stand together and we're going to sing page 166.